If you do not wish to be recorded, please keep your camera off. That's totally fine. I do have one announcement to share before we get started. Yair, if you can quickly tell about this.
Yes, just very briefly, the next gravitational wave physics and astronomy workshop is going to be in December 1 to 4th of this year. It's hosted by Georgia Tech in Atlanta. So they're the ones running it. It's not me, I'm just the messenger. So these are the dates, and I guess this will be in the recording. If you want to print screen, Gotham, if you can scroll a bit down, there's the website, which maybe is the most important piece of information here. Yes, right at the bottom. So if people want to copy that or print it, take
And
a
I'll
picture.
forward around the poster via email to the entire mailing list right after this call.
Excellent. Thank you, Gotham. So that's it.
Okay, thanks, Yair. Okay, so do we have folks from LVK who are going to share screen? Perfect. I'll let you folks take it away.
There we go. Hi, everyone. I am Jenne Driggers. I'm the detection lead scientist at the LIGO Hanford Observatory. I'm also the operations division chair for the LIGO Scientific Collaboration, so presenting this on behalf of the whole LVK operations division, as well as the whole LVK. So these are mostly come from Gautam brought forward a couple of questions that have been stewing in the community, and we wanted to just address those really quickly. So I'll be brief before I hand it over to my colleague. So first of all, Deep Chatterjee, this is his email address, has been appointed by the LVK to be our liaison to the OpenMMA community. So if there are questions that folks have that need attention, in particular a presentation at in a forum like this, please reach out to Deep, and he'll organize us on the LVK side making a presentation or responding to that. So the idea is Deep will work with the community to ensure that LVK side presentations answer the needs of the OpenMMA community and bring forward topics to the community that the LVK would like to discuss in this forum. So thanks, Deep, for taking that on. Okay, this is a really text-heavy slide, but a question, a thing that maybe we haven't always been historically clear about is how does the LVK decide on when to run and when to not run in observation mode? And the kind of core piece is that the dates are driven primarily by our instrument's readiness. And so things like the currently planned gap between 04 and 05 is really set entirely by our estimate of how long it'll take to make those improvements. So we do try to only shift observing run dates when necessary, but sometimes it is necessary. We are trying our best to take into account operational schedules of MMA observatories. So we talked in this forum last month about a central repository of schedules so that we can all see each other's kind of planned schedules and try to make those make that work a little bit better. It's certainly proven challenging to align things perfectly because each one of our various instruments, whether gravitational wave or traditional astronomical observatory, right? We all have our hardware components that are ready when they're ready. So that's been a challenge. So having a common space where we all share up-to-date information will be really helpful. One thing that we've been thinking about is in particular Rubin. We're very excited that Rubin is coming online soon. I'm personally very excited about their update in a few minutes here. So we've been in contact. Somebody's unmuted and maybe somebody could mute, please. Norbert, maybe? Thanks. we've been in contact with the Rubin folks to talk about getting them the same low latency information that everybody else has about, so that should we make a detection, an EM bright candidate, like possibly has EM bright components while Rubin is still in their commissioning phase, that Rubin can slew and have a look at that piece of the sky. So we're trying to do what we can. But a lot of it is driven by instrument readiness on our side. Another thing that we haven't historically done a great job of, and so this is hopefully a start of being better about doing it, is being clear about our plans for upcoming catalogs and data releases by the LVK. So this is a publicly available document, and well, yeah, we'll get these slides onto the minutes and agenda of the data management plan for the LVK, that from which I've pulled this plot of here's when an observing run happened, and then we're currently partway through O4C here. And the data management plan includes our dates for which we are anticipating releasing the data. Although I do note that there's a typo here because that's a Saturday, and I think it'll be a few days after that. Um, so these are dates that we've agreed with the National Science Foundation. So the National Science Foundation has known these dates for a long time, but we wanted to make sure that since this is a public document, that folks were pointed to it. This is, again, in that public document folks can look at later with just notes on the type of thing that we send out. So these are low latency alerts that happen in real time that everybody has already been receiving in O4, all the way up to the full strain data release. The bulk data releases happen on the dates that are shown in the plot on the previous page. The last thing that I'll talk about, oh no, this is just the same pointer to the website that we've always got, updated at least monthly on the 15th of the month, so folks can see what our currently anticipated observing plans are. The last thing I'll talk about is something that we've talked about in this forum for a long time. The LVK is anticipating very soon, including in our low latency alerts, coarse grain mass information. So we won't be sharing a precise numerical value for the chirp mass for compact binary events, but we will be providing a binned estimate. So I just wanted to provide that context that it's been something that this community has been asking for a long time. We've actually been working on it in the background for a long time, and it's very nearly ready to go into production. So I can take questions on the other topics, but this topic in particular, since that's the focus of my colleague's presentation for the next 20 minutes, I won't take questions on coarse grain mass information since we'll have many more details in the next few minutes. I'm not seeing hands jump up, so maybe
Yeah,
there's
if you have
something.
any questions for Jenny, please feel free to just raise your hand and we'll call on you. Um, I just wanted to say this is actually very exciting, this coarse grained mass information, and in fact connects a little bit with Rubin TO update from Sean soon. We were trying to implement this strategy put out in an MMA white paper in March of last year by Igor Andrioni, Raffaella Maguti. I think Igor is certainly on the call right now, and some of the categories of alerts do in fact call for masses, and that has not been actually possible to implement with the current alerts, but should be soon. Then, so this is very
Fantastic. Awesome. I'm glad that folks are ready
yes.
for it.
I see some thumbs ups. Are there any quick questions for Jenny before we move on to more information about the mass estimation? And Jenny, for the O4A data release that's coming up, I think on your timeline in August, um, is there sort of a analysis that people want to see from LVK from the rest of the community to recover events that might have been missed? What would you like folks to be able to do with that data? Um, Also considering that this will be around the same time that Rubin DP1 will be out, etc.
Um, that's a good and interesting question, and I haven't thought deeply about it. Certainly, we're excited that the data goes out publicly, and so other folks, certainly in our past observing run datas, folks have looked through and find events, and those are actually now available, or soon will be available, on the Gravitational Wave Open Science Center,
Okay.
hosting those other events. So when those are found, those will get folded into the Gravitational Wave Open Science Center catalogs. Um, I don't know that we have a specific ask other than there's the data. We throw it over the fence and look forward to the science that
Yeah,
folks can do with it.
it'd be interesting to brainstorm on the LVK side if there's some joint community activity that might be set up. I can imagine, something like a small hack session or whatever, where you get people together to do some sort of retrospective analysis for the MMA events, for NSBH and BNS events that have happened in O4A. Okay,
Great,
so
thank you.
let's hopefully get our next update on the coarse grain mass estimation from LVK.
Yep, so I'm going to share my screen. Hello, everybody. I am Andrew Toivonen. I'm at the University of Minnesota, and I'm a graduate student there. And I'm just going to hide these controls, and we can get into this. So as Jenny nicely introduced, we're going to be talking about binned chirp mass information. And just as a little bit of intro about chirp mass, it's precisely measured from the in-spiral gravitational wave frequency evolution, and it's particularly very precisely measured in the low mass regime. And I put the chirp mass formula up here for those that may or may not, remember off the top of your head or be familiar with this. Um, and you see here on the right-hand side, this is pretty accurately measured by search pipelines in the low mass regime. So you see you have an injected, so this was a simulation campaign, injected versus recovered or measured chirp mass. And you see that it is in fact very well recovered in that low mass regime, with some uncertainty as you get up to higher masses. Um, on the left here, we see GW170817, and what you see is M1 versus M2, and this nice, very fine curve here shows, how finely the chirp mass is actually measured, and you can see that, the errors here are, a couple thousandth of a solar mass, whereas the actual errors in M1 and M2 are pretty large. So this is all kind of motivating why, we're going to release chirp mass estimates because this is the thing that we can actually accurately recover. And so as Jenny introduced, right, we're going to be releasing binned chirp mass information. So it's going to be a new data product for the source chirp mass in the form of binned probabilities. And we have a predetermined set of bins, starting fine in the has SSM and has NS regime, where the chirp mass is very well recovered, and becoming more coarse for those higher masses in the BBH regime where we have a little bit higher uncertainties. And so specifically, right, if we're looking at these has SSM bins, I'm going to talk a little bit about why the bins are defined like they are. This 0.87 chirp mass corresponds to a one solar mass merger. And obviously, if you remember back to, the first slide, with this chirp mass definition, you can have, obviously there's multiple M1, M2 pairs for, a single chirp mass, right? So I'm giving an example of why we're defining this 0.87, and that's because it would be a one solar mass pair. So you would assume anything in this bin here would be a sub-solar mass type event. Loosely defined, right? And so then if you talk about kind of this next chunk of bins, I'm going to say they're loosely the has NS regime. And you can see that, for example, right, a chirp mass of 1.2 solar masses may correspond to a 1.4 or 1.4 solar mass merger. This is obviously kind of a canonical, neutron star and similar to what we saw for GW170817 and something that we talk about. So I'm just giving you some context again for those that don't maybe think about how chirp mass corresponds to the actual mass pairs. And then you see at the other end of this, a chirp mass of 3 solar masses may correspond to a 1.410 solar mass merger. So again, these aren't, some mutually, exclusive boundary, but I'm just showing this is approximately, what can fall within those chirp mass boundaries. And again, they're fine in this has SSM and has NS regime where we do actually measure these chirp masses very precisely. And then finally, we have this BBH regime where the bands get much more coarse. And again, just for context, right, I'm showing that, a chirp mass of 8.7 solar masses may correspond to a 10 solar mass, 10 solar mass BBH merger. And then all the way up to a chirp mass of 44 now corresponds to a 100 total mass, 50 solar mass, 50 solar mass BBH merger. So again, just kind of giving some context how things would fall in these bins, and it's something that is good to have some context of as we talk about these things. And so for this binned chirp mass information, we plan on uploading a JSON file with the probabilities and a PNG histogram showing the bin probabilities onto GraceDB. This is not planned to be included in the alert packet for now. And just as for EMBrite and for SkyMaps, just like everyone's used to, there'll be a low latency estimate in the initial GCN circular, and later we can be updated based on our PE information. So, you'll see, just like you're used to for EMBrite or for SkyMaps, where you have one originally, right, within that initial alert, and then, hours later, you have an update alert that will update that information. It's going to be exactly just like that. And those two pathways, we have the low latency version, right, the one in the initial, and this uses the pipeline point estimate. So for CBC pipeline, that's the template match, and then the SkyMap distance information to actually shift this to the source frame or the source mchirp. And I'll talk about that in one sec. But we measure things in the detector frame, right? And then finally, our medium latency or our PE update, and this would be Bayesian parameter estimation based using BillBPE. And again, we shift these things based on the recovered pipeline mass chirp or mchirp, which is provided by the search pipelines. And then we have redshift provided by Baystar or PE, a SkyMap or PE. And then finally, we get our mass that we actually, our source chirp mass that we report. And so that's how that is done. And then as for our integration into public alerts, again, like I said, the chirp mass info is not included in the alert packet as of now. This is a potential future item, but this information is reported in the GCN circular and available for download on GraceDB. It's publicly available. And so, like I said, this low latency estimate available in seconds, just like your first SkyMap and EMBrite information. And then the PE estimate is available, hours later when parameter estimation is done and you get that SkyMap update. And I showed just an example of this data product. First, a JSON that you can download from GraceDB here, where it's going to be your bin edges and the probabilities of falling, in each of those bins. Obviously, here I show one, and these plots and whatever don't correspond to one another. But I show one here where you have all the probability in one bin, and then you see what this PNG looks like. And just for context, right? This is something that I've made the tick spaces spaced by the actual bins. This is not, spaced in any sort of normal mass space, but it's to give you an idea of where the actual mass falls within a bin, and to help, concisely and accurately visually represent what's contained in the JSON, so that you can take a glance at it right away and know what our coarse-grained chirp mass estimate is and which bin it falls in. And then onto our circular changes, which I'm sure people are going to be interested in. We make very small additions to each of the circulars. So in general, for this initial circular, we are adding a little blurb of text that says the source chirp mass falls within highest probability in the bin, left bin, right bin. So think, 1 to 1.1 solar masses, assuming the candidate is astrophysical in origin. And again, this is the source chirp mass. And then for updates, it's going to be pretty much exactly the same, where it falls within the bin, but after parameter estimation, right? And this is, the Bilby parameter estimation. And then one last note that this is in general done for CBC events, right? CBC searches, where we have a pipeline point estimate. But one burst search, which is kind of a hybrid burst CBC search, CWB, coherent wave burst, BBH, does in fact have a chirp mass estimate. So we do release that, except there's one thing with CWB BBH, which is that it doesn't have distance or redshift information available in low latency. So the CWB estimate, as it says here, there's no distance or redshift information available. So this will actually be the detector frame chirp mass. And that means that you will have to wait for the PE estimate in that case, if there is one, to have a source estimate. And that's why we have that little caveat there. And I just show you, a little circular here, and where this would fall in, kind of falls after the MacBride p-astro sort of information. And you see, here's our example. The source chirp mass falls within the bin 3 to 5.5 solar masses, assuming the candidate is astrophysical origin. And all we do is we report the highest probability bin here for conciseness, and that allows you to, again, quickly see where it falls. And if you want the actual file, you can go take a look on GraceDB. And looking ahead, which is probably what everyone is going to be asking, the calculation and data product has been reviewed, and we're currently testing the integration into our alert infrastructure. And release of these estimates is planned right away sometime in June. And so that is the end of this, and I can open it up to questions.
Great, thank you very much. Do we have questions on the chirp mass stuff for Andrew? Yeah.
Yes, first of all, just to say thank you. This is really fantastic. Thank you for doing this. I just wondering if the not including it in the public alert is some policy issue, or is it just a matter of just software work?
Oh, in the alerts. Yeah, so it's software work. It's a future item. I think, we'd love to get this out now, as soon as possible. And then that is a future item, whether that's later in the run or for a future observing run, right? That's something that could be done, but it does take additional software work and approval, and obviously changing the alert schema is something that can have downstream impacts on those that consume our alerts, obviously.
Okay, thanks.
Just to follow up to Yaya's point, SIMA, which puts out the alerts for LVK, as well as groups like NASA GCN, you can, of course, send multiple alerts for the same event. You can send the chirp mass as a separate Kafka packet as an intermediate sort of step. So that way, as long as the things have the same super event ID, it is not too hard to get the chirp mass in some format that a program can read, and at the same time get the data out to the community before O5 starts. So, Nair.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. This sounds great. The release of these estimates, you said they're planned in June. Is it only going to be for events in O4C starting in June, or will you folks be releasing the information for all the O4A and O4B events as well in June? The chirp mass binning.
So as of now, all we have planned and kind of what we're expecting is to be releasing for future events. We have talked about retroactively releasing chirp mass information, and this is something that, is a possible future item, but I can't make any promises on that.
Right, okay, thanks. The idea would be that those would then get released in the full data release.
Exactly, yeah, and I understand the interest in the use case for that. And like I said, it's something that we have. There is some interest in it, but this is something I can't promise, like I said.
Right. Okay, thanks.
I guess maybe more broadly to the LVK folks, who would one talk to make this policy decision about chirp masses and alerts itself in O4?
You're saying if you're trying to advocate for it, or you're asking like who?
Yeah, I'm trying to advocate for it, and so Deep caught on. So Deep, who would we talk with?
Well,
Right,
you
so
can talk to me, and I will relay the information, and I'll bring back the response. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gautam.
Cody.
Yeah, just as a quick comment, in case the discussions, like another intermediate step, if the sort of intermediate adding of the MacBride, or sorry, of the CGMI coarse grain mass information to as its own independent little notice, if that doesn't get approved, just so that the consumers are aware of this, the files are deterministically named, so they'll always have the same name. So something that could be implemented on the consumer side is once a the second preliminary is received. Don't quote me on that, but so maybe it's the initial, but I can get more information to anybody that wants it. So contact Deep if you need more information on this. But since they're deterministically named, you could set up an automatic process to download that file from GraceDB as a another sort of intermediate step if you don't want to have to manually open up the GraceDB page and scroll down and look at the file.
Yeah, that's very useful to know. Thank you so much, Cody. Any final questions for the LVK team? I see a hand up. Oh, nope, that went down. Going once, going twice. All right. So let's thank the LVK folks again. And then Sean, are you on? Yes. Okay. Sean, if you can share your slides.
Can everyone see my screen and also hear me?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Take it away.
Okay. First, thank you very much for having me here. I am a PhD student at the University of Zurich, but for the past year, I've been living in Chile, assisting with the commissioning of Rubin Observatory. And the first bit of news that I'd like to share that hopefully everyone's aware of, but it's trickled out bit by bit, is that Rubin has acquired first photon about 45 days ago in mid-April. We're currently undergoing a more intense period of commissioning of the observatory throughout different engineering tests that we would like to do. But something that we're looking forward to in the context of what we've been talking about here is science validation surveys, which will begin in just over 2 weeks from now. Now, when these begin, it will not be flipping a switch and will be all science, all at once. This will be sort of a phased rollout, and in some ways, we've actually already started some of these surveys. So this is just the nominal date that we circulate out. I had an asterisk because it's commissioning, and we're fully expecting some delays or some things may scuttle us. But as of today, that date seems completely attainable for the entire team. Over the coming months, I also would like to highlight that there is an observing pause that is being organized around September of this year. And this is related to several lifts to finish up construction of the observatory, specifically for the light dome windscreen, which will help improve image quality. On the topic of image quality, I also want to give a brief highlight of a few of the things that we've learned throughout the commissioning of Rubin Observatory. On the first night, we were able to deliver 1.5 arcsecond PSS, which is amazing for commissioning this observatory for the first time. Now, a lot of that was worked out through the ComCam commissioning campaign, which took place from October to December of last year. But it still is a testament that after a single night of ironing out additional kinks for LSST-CAM, we were able to deliver sub-arcsecond PSS. Now, the adaptive optics team is still working to meet the image quality contribution from the AOS system, but they're converging very closely, and we anticipate that that will not be an issue throughout the rest of the commissioning. The large calibration systems as well in the observatory have been commissioned, and we've been spending actually this past weekend acquiring a lot of characterization data to help better understand the camera and better understand some of these systems. I personally work pretty extensively with LSST-CAM, so I can comment a little bit about its performance during commissioning as well. It's been remarkably well. We acquired first photon with 99% of the focal plane active. We had 3 CCDs with a faulty sensor that would prevent us from turning them on, and that's been since recovered. And then we had another 3 CCDs that showed signs of an electrical short, and we're in the process of recovering them as well. So all of the LSST focal plane seems active and alive and is delivering science-grade images. We've also been able to successfully exercise the filter changer system, and we've been through 4 filter swaps over the past month and a half. So it's really been smooth operations as much as you can ask for during the commissioning period here at the observatory. So, Rubin target of opportunity. This program was originally allocated 3% of the LSST time for target of opportunities. There have been several meetings, most recently in 2024 at Berkeley, trying to figure out how can we maximize this 3%. Because while 3% does not sound like a lot, it comes out to hundreds of hours a year. So we seriously need to consider how do we deal with this. Actually, excuse me, it should be thousands of hours a year. So we arrived at a wide variety of different science cases for TOO, gravitational wave, neutrino, galactic supernova, and others. I will note that the gravitational wave science case encompassed most of the target of opportunity recommendation. And if you're interested in the specifics of everything, I've linked it here in this presentation, if you'd like to take a look. So that's how we arrived at this place, and the community recommendation was accepted early this year by the Survey Cadence Optimization Committee. And yes, I saw a comment, PHA is potentially hazardous asteroid. Sorry for any confusion around that. So I'd like to now just highlight a few of the strategies that we arrived at as a result of that summit and their context in the next 3 to 6 months as we progress through Rubin's science validation. We separate our gravitational wave events that contain a neutron star component into 2 classes, primarily dependent on the delivered sky map size. The major difference between the two is that for smaller sky maps, which we consider gold here, we have 3 epochs on the first night across the sky map. For larger sky map events up to 500 square degrees, we have only 1 with much shorter exposure times. Now, for other kinds of events, first the binary black hole events, these are much less intrusive in terms of disrupting the other surveys going on, but the requirement on the delivered sky map area is much more stringent to maintain this level of unabated observations for the other surveys. So notably as well, we also are planning to pursue neutrino and potentially hazardous asteroid events during science validation. The neutrino strategy has been completely implemented into what we call the Rubin scheduler and has been tested for several test cases. The neutrino and potentially hazardous asteroid events are also very non-intrusive as well, similar to the binary black hole events. And the reason I continue to bring that up is that throughout science validation, we're going to be balancing verifying the other science surveys, along with making significant scientific discoveries over the very short period of overlap between us and the LIGO final observing run for 04. So all of these strategies that I've described here have been not only accepted by the Survey Cadence Optimization Committee, but they follow directly from their recommendations to start with these kinds of events immediately. So that's what we'll be doing once we're ready to go. How do we get to ready to go? That's the next question. So this is our overall workflow, in a bit of a simplified manner. We have our incoming alert stream, which derives from schema. We then, for science validation, we bring a human in the loop, which will require SV coordinators and our dedicated observers at the observatory. We have a group that will determine if we observe, and then we use a tool known as the Rubin scheduler, which is available online. And I can point you at some references if you're interested. This will plan our observations to be executed over however long the TOO requires, and our data management team who address the difference imaging for each event. The state of this overall system is very close to ready for a real event, and I'll walk through each of the individual components now. So the first step in this, as I mentioned, is the alert stream. We're in about actually I have the time here wrong, in about 3 hours, we're meeting with them to finalize a demo to ensure that we can pick up the necessary alert packets at the summit using our engineering facility database. And this will also include Rubin's scheduler execution of strategy. So this will be the first dry test from end to end of the Rubin system that will not include observations, but will include all of the steps that we need to perform before we observe on the sky. So this is our first goal that we really need to satisfy, and the second is related to the science validation group. So during science validation, which will start in a little over 2 weeks, there are 2 kinds of surveys that are going on, and this sticks with the main theme of the LSST survey. There will be deep drilling fields, imaging single fields over and over again in different bands, and then there will be the wide survey. And this wide survey clearly is very necessary for template generation. And one of the implementations of these 2 would prioritize the wider template coverage earlier. So we're still under discussion, but this is one thing that's being considered. And this would sufficiently support the data management team to have a wider selection of templates, Rubin templates specifically, to choose from. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But as I mentioned earlier when I was describing the different strategies, we want to make sure that we minimize disruption to the SV surveys so that we can close out construction here at the observatory, but also maximize science outcomes. And so balancing the 2 is going to be extremely difficult over the next several months and trying to work that out. We're considering 3 trigger decision evaluation criteria for the next 3 months at least, between the scientific potential, the level of disruption to the SV survey, and the existing survey coverage, if any. Since we're starting from scratch and going through the commissioning here, we do not have a sufficient amount of Rubin templates. So building up that template base will be extremely important. So we're already started to build up some internal tools to help us make these decisions. So understanding quick statistics so that when we can meet and we realize that if we need to follow up on a certain event, we have the information that we need in order to do this. And this is all hosted on the Rubin Science platform, and we'll be able to access it within 5 minutes or less of receiving a sky map from Schema. So in order to disrupt SV and pursue a TOO, we will need a wide range of expertise across the entire observatory. To support this, we've already assembled an advisory committee for TOOs. This includes folks who are on the summit, folks who are off the summit, folks who are in project leadership, software, hardware experts, and including folks who can connect us directly with LVK. And Deep, I'm sure you and I will get to know each other very well in the next couple of months. The main aim of this committee, which I'm sure everybody here loves committees, is to ensure that we have broad support to pursue specific targets over the next 3 to 4 months. Now, the Rubin scheduler is what plans and executes our observations. And to get a little bit more in the weeds here, we have of 13 different strategies that were suggested by the community last year. We have 12 of them implemented into the scheduler as of now. Now, the one that is not is related to large gravitational wave sky maps that contain a neutron star component. And that specific case would require explicit work with the Survey Cadence Optimization Committee to try to modify the survey cadence to still cover that region. And when we say large here, we're talking about order 500 to 1,000 square degrees. So something similar to 190425, where maybe we have 1 or more detectors that are offline at the time. So testing of the scheduler of these 12 implemented strategies has already started. And for the minimum number of strategies that we need in order to complete SV, half of them are validated to completion. The remaining 5 strategies require minor changes to the exact timing of certain epochs, but will still be sufficient for SV. And so as an example, I've shown here TOO observations for a 10-day simulation over a GW Gold event, which only requires 4 days. And to give you an idea of some of these minor changes that are needed, this is a neutrino strategy. that involves G, R, Z, and U bands. The only change that we need to make here is that this second epoch of G band observations needs to be moved to night 1 instead of night 0. So these are minor changes and not something that we deem to be majorly disruptive. I anticipate that we'll have this implemented to the Rubin scheduler by the time for its next release, which will be in 1 week. So the Rubin scheduler is in a very good state, and we're finalizing the verification of these tests. The last team that I've mentioned briefly is the data management and, as we call internally, the prompt processing team. This is the team that will actually do the difference imaging. Now, as of today, the prompt processing pipeline is working at full capacity. In order to work at full capacity, we've required templates. And so we've acquired about 3 weeks worth of science observations to support Rubin First Look, which will be happening sometime in the next months. But during these science observations, we were able to test some of these pipelines, and the prompt processing team has already reported that we're able to acquire standard data products within a few minutes. Yeah, Gautam, you had a question.
Yeah, I'm just quickly looking at this slide, and I notice you have alert dissemination as usual, and I wanted to just double check that with you because I thought you and I were on the same call with Eric Belm where he pointed out that the brokers were going to have to do something different for TOO alerts, precisely because they weren't from Whitefast or DDF and weren't essentially being generated in the same exact way, potentially even with different templates.
Yeah, so what I mean when I'm saying alert dissemination as usual is that we're allowed to release coordinates related to certain alerts that we're following up on, but specific to the embargo restrictions, we have an on-sky pixel restriction of 80 hours. So the actual implementation with brokers, we still need to finalize, yes, but in terms of releasing that information, we will be able to release coordinates associated with alerts that we find.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I have a simmer hat, but I also have a broker hat. So it was like, wait, what? When did that happen?
Yeah, sorry. So yes, that is one last step in this whole chain that we still have to finalize. And we're planning to do a full system test, which I'll talk about a little bit later, where we will work out those details exactly. So the prompt processing group does require templates, and since we're still commissioning our instruments, we don't have a significant amount of template coverage over much of the sky. So the team has already started to work on how do we source alternative template sources, or how do we perform custom processing in the event of a meaningful and scientifically impactful target of opportunity. And the likely case is that we will not have Rubin templates in the area. So the PP team has already started sourcing templates from DECAM and has already developed an alternate pipeline that will be able to handle these kinds of templates. We already have also acquired an on-call processing team in the event that we need additional support and that this custom pipeline does not work right out of the box, which is extremely likely. So we're preparing for the likely scenario of no Rubin templates in our tiling area. In the unlikely case that Rubin templates do exist and we get a relevant target over an area that we've already imaged, prompt processing can run as usual, and we should have no issues. As of last night, when we had about a mixed bag and spent the first half of the night performing calibrations, we were producing alerts usually throughout the second half of the night for our on-sky observations. So it really is working very efficiently and is ready for any reasonable and very impactful event over the next coming months. And so I'd like to wrap up here by pointing out the milestones and accomplishments we need to complete in order to be ready for a impactful TOO. So the schema demo will be happening in just a few hours, and we'll be finalizing any of the kinks that are developed. As far as validating strategy, we've already started that validation, and we plan to have that finished by about May 27th. And there are other strategies that we would like to implement to the scheduler in order to fully support the community recommendation. But as far as being required for science validation, they are not. But it will be very straightforward to validate these once we have validated the required alert types for science validation. The prompt processing external templates pipeline is in development, and to trigger on a non-templated field, we will need to finalize this pipeline and address it adequately. But for a planned field that has existing templates, we actually can perform this test as soon as everyone is available and we have the resources ready to respond. So we're in the process of organizing that test as we speak. So with that, I just want to remind everyone, Rubin is primed for very important and impactful science now, and is also thinking about how do we commission and prepare this observatory for the coming decade of astronomy and specifically multi-messenger astrophysics. So that's all I have right now, and I'm more than willing to take any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sean. Do we have questions for Sean? Oh, I see hands going up very quickly. Eric and then Igor. Eric?
Oh, thanks for this presentation. Fantastic news altogether. There are two things that caught my attention in your slide where you present your TOO program and plans for gravitational waves as well as neutrinos. You mostly or only follow up events that are identified as binary systems. And I'd like to point out the fact that we also sent alerts for unmodeled events, unmodeled transits, namely the ones that are not falling in that template. And although we have sent very few alerts, I believe over 04 we maybe sent one that we retracted. I think they stand significant sense of being, significant discoveries. Can you comment what is your plan, or if there is any, for the unmodeled transients? Unmodeled wave transients. And I guess the second thing has to do with neutrino, maybe a confirmation. I think where you laid out is neutrinos, high energy neutrinos, as opposed to core collapse supernovae neutrinos, right? But I'll let you.
Yeah. I'll answer your second question first. We do caveat the neutrino follow-ups as high energy neutrino events. So apologies for not being precise in this slide, and I'll rectify that. To answer your first question related to unidentified sources, these strategy types that we've defined here for neutron star component events will be employed for similar unidentified source events. It will all be restricted based upon how large is the sky map. So if we receive a sky map that is 300 square degrees and it's of an unidentified source, we'll pursue it using this strategy.
Oh, I see. So that's a significant thing that you're telling me. So even the burst events, as long as they're well localized, you're going to be following them up. Good.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you.
Igor?
Hi.
Yes,
Yeah, this
yes,
is
Matt,
Igor. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm calling from Rio, where actually a bunch of us are here for a transient focus conference for LSST. And well, first of all, I think we're all happy to hear about all this progress. And kudos really, Sean and the team for the implementation of the strategies. And I really like to hear how seriously also the project is taking this need to be ready early to be able to do the science. Something that during this conference was identified during discussion as a priority is exactly the method that you mentioned of the need for templates. And in fact, we were already planning, it was decided during the discussion to prepare a very short memo encouraging the commissioning team to possibly do some wide area observations that can serve as templates. I hope maybe this extra community push maybe can also help make this possibility come true, although I think it's very much understood that you have other priorities for science verification. So this is more like to let you know that this is coming. And I was also wondering about what's going to happen after a certain strategy is decided, for example, for the tiling of the area. I know that someone like Shreya would like to help with that or so, but are there plans already in place on the Science Commissioning end?
So for commissioning and specific, so first your first point, I'm super thrilled to hear that, that we'll have some community push, because the two SV surveys that will be going on, there is a lot of supporting and external reasons to pursue the wider template version. And if we can get community support for that, that would be substantial. So thank you first for that. As far as the tiling strategy, the current implementation does not do any ordering or hexylation related to any of the tiles. I do not anticipate that we'll see any change to that over the short period of Rubin SV, but I believe in the longer term, and this is something I've spoken a little bit with Shreya about, in the longer term, we will definitely try to implement some sort of tiling scheme where we can optimize for the highest probability regions first. I mean, an exercise I was going through with Shreya the other day was for a silver neutron star component alert, like you're seeing on the screen right now. You could lose up to 2 to 3 hours if you do not optimize properly. So that's something that we need to get implemented into the scheduler, but we don't have it as of now. But it is a high priority in the future.
Excellent, thank you.
And I think the next person's Brian O'Reilly.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. It's very exciting to see this coming together so quickly. I note that the team you have to do target opportunity observations is quite large, and I know it includes a liaison. I think our experience is that it's important to have some very clear decision-making capability in there, so that if something happens, especially, you know, outside of normal working hours, which is common, that we can get to a decision pretty quickly. Otherwise, it puts people in a difficult position of, you know, really wanting to do something, but kind of being stuck waiting for approval from higher up. And you know, I think one way, well, another recommendation is then to try to coordinate closely, obviously with DEEP, but also with the run coordinators / operations leads. They're almost a full overlap there at the LBK. So, but again, very impressive. Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we are in these two system tests that I have outlined in the last slide here. We are planning already in devising some internal documentation on how to handle these triggers. And so having that short latency, okay, we got the event of a generation and we need to respond within a half an hour. Those are the kinds of things that we will be planning for as we run through these two system tests shown at the bottom.
And I guess I can quickly add, Brian, that Eric Belm, who's the lead of the LSST alert production side, has asked people for volunteers to serve as the sort of alert human inspectors in the loop, essentially. And a lot of those have been fairly senior people, so I don't think there'll be too much trouble having the political will to trigger TO for these things. Deep.
Yeah, my question was on this slide because as I understand, several steps do require human intervention. Could you give me a sense of how long each of these steps are after SIMA? You have the Rubin scheduler, the Brown processing system test. Do you have a sense of the entire, you know, timeline? Like how long will it take before you can send an alert out? Let's say just the coordinates.
Send an alert out. So from receiving alerts under the current prompt processing pipeline that has templates, they're producing data products within a few minutes. So I do not think it would be unreasonable to think within several hours of that, at the most, we could send alerts out. For a custom processing pipeline, you're talking about potentially 3 to 4 hours to fully address, you know, stitching in Decam or other templates into the system. So that could be longer, but it's not something that, you know, when this happens, it is a 5-alarm fire and a bit of an all hands on deck situation. So having the will to do it is one thing, and I think that will cause that amount of time to decrease. I can't give you a concrete number right now, but I can certainly start to give you a concrete number as we go through some of these system tests in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, sounds good. And then, as I understand, then there is a plan to do these kind of mock, you know, mock data challenges, sort of. I mean, that's the term that comes to my mind. On your end.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds good. And then this is kind of a question for Gautam. I'll just take the quick you know, opportunity to mention it. I have already received, you know, some private messages regarding like a place to chat, and I think Brian also brought it up a little bit. So because SIMA is organizing these calls, would it be possible, Gautam, to like organize separate Slack on the SIMA's, you know, a group on this on?
Just look, my take here is that the SIMA Slack is public, it's open. We are happy to pay for it. You should feel free to create whatever channel you want to as the LVK liaison lead and invite who you need to that channel, and that's within our mandate to support as best we can for as long as we can.
Okay, sounds good. That sounds great. And yeah, for those who just sent me messages privately, I'll try to, you know, create that channel and add you to it.
Yeah, we
if I forget, please you know, feel free to ping me on that email that was listed.
Yep. And we have just about enough time to squeeze in Sam's question.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, great talk, Sean. I may have missed this. I have a toddler running around constantly. Will there be any public information on when Rubin will be executing a TOO? How will the community know when something like this is being executed? Will there be a I don't know, like a standardized format for the Rubin scheduler that we can like a VO table like services can tap into and see like a TOO is being executed?
That is not something, in full transparency, that's not something that I've thought about, but I do recognize the need to alert the community of when we are pursuing our first groups of TOOs. So my promise to you is this: we will be releasing alerts related to any event that we have, and I will work to try to serve the community as best we can, despite operating under these embargo and other restrictions.
Sean, I guess we can say that, you know, Rubin does publish a scheduler where it's supposed to point 24 hours in advance, I believe. And I think that comes from the stuff that Thiago has been doing. I think for TOs, it would just be useful to send out updates on the same system, just essentially saying, here's the super event ID for this particular event, and here's where we're going to start pointing. And this can be coordinated with the SIMA Heroic system or NASA Across, or really both.
Yeah.
But as long as it gets published, it should be straightforward. Oh, Lynn's on.
Yeah, maybe we should have Lynn comment on this. I'm sure she knows a lot more about this than I.
Yeah, so sorry. So there is an Observatory tap service. So it's actually proper VO service that will be publishing the predicted visits. So it does publish 24 hours ahead. That's just coming from simulations that we run ahead of time. But obviously those aren't super reliable. What it does is also update what's coming up in the next over the next 2 hours, and then also like what's the really next visit. And you can imagine that as you go through that from 24 hours to the next 2 hours to the next visit, that it gets more reliable. And in fact, the next visit is except for failures, it would be guaranteed. So you would see it there. I don't know if you would be able to recognize that it's a TOO because, we do publish something like the target. I would have to check what fields we publish in it, but it will tell you that we're about to look at something that you might already know as a potential TOO from other services, other sources.
Yeah. I guess I have like one more small question related to that. I was aware that there was going to be a VO service, but I don't know where to find it. Is it publicly available yet, or when will it be? Are they going to be pushing like tests, schedules to it?
Yeah, so Will Omelan is building that. It is already mostly built, but there's some things I think that are still being ironed out. It's a good question when we're going to make that available, because certainly before first look, nothing is going to be available. I think that probably about the time we start issuing test alert, the testing the alert system, we probably are going to have that live. It would make sense to me anyway. I should check with Will at what the actual timing is.
So
Great.
we're at
All right,
time.
thanks.
Since you just mentioned first look, and I know that Željko is on the call, I don't know, Željko, if the first look dates have been finalized and can be shared publicly. We'll, I guess, assume that that's not yet maybe safe to share, but
Yeah, what I'm no Jelko, but the answer to your question is no, not yet.
but I'd say second half of June is very, very likely, and hopefully there'll be more public information soon after that. So there'll be minutes for this call as well as recording going up on the OpenMMA wiki. I'll circulate the GWPAW poster that Yaya shared at the top of this call. Thank you all for coming, and we hope we'll see you in June for an update once O4C is now underway. See you then. Bye-bye.